TD Ameritrade.
Welcome back to the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. A tremendous day in terms of resilience. Again, the averages themselves haven't moved a lot this week, but they've endured a lot. The AMD warning today, the SAP warning yesterday, the breakdown in energy prices. You can go down that list, and as all of it has come through, we've had these ripples, but we have ultimately moved higher, not lower. Melissa Lee with me here, setting up now for an earnings week next week that should deliver that much more to churn through these averages.
And a lot of the groups that moved the Dow higher in today's session, techs and financials, those will be big groups to watch going into next week. Of course, next week we've got Intel reporting on Tuesday, we've got Apple, we've got IBM, and then on the bank front we got the world's biggest, Citigroup as well as JP Morgan. So we're going to get a real feel for earnings season next week and from the biggest parts of the market, financials as well as technology.
If you were to look at the flavor, in other words, the feeling here as to the resilience, in other words, what is the underlying thought process behind the willingness to continue to buy as these hits have come into the market?
Well, you know, it's amazing because usually the Friday before a three-day weekend, we don't see much volume and we don't see much conviction. And the volume, fairly decent. We're approaching 1.5 billion shares traded. That's not too bad the day ahead of a long weekend. And we are closing close to the highs of the session. That is important as well.
We'll go out at a new record here. Dow Jones Industrial Average good for 36. The NASDAQ continues to power forward. The bell rings as we speak, and the closing bell continues right now with Maria Bartiromo at CNBC World Headquarters.
Wall Street bulls taking charge once again, taking the blue chips to new heights despite some high-profile profit warnings today. We'll look ahead to next week when earnings season really gears up. With 18 straight quarters of double-digit profit growth, will corporate profits prove resilient once again? A major factor to the rally on Wall Street, the price of oil down 30% from its highs. See who wins, who loses when crude oil pulls back and how you can profit from it. Well, from the spotlight to the hot seat, it's been a week of highs and lows for Steve Jobs and Apple. The Fed's reportedly honing in on option grants now. Should investors imagine an Apple without its core? But first up, another record breaker on Wall Street today, everybody. The Dow Jones Industrial Average logged its 24th record close since October. Yes, 24 all-time highs. Today's strength in technology, once again, the factor. Energy also fueling the action, with the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ now at fresh 6-year highs. Investors largely shrugging off some high-profile profit warnings earlier today and instead focused on better-than-expected economic data. Take a look at where we're ending out on this Friday at 4 o'clock on Wall Street. The Dow Jones Industrial Average finishes up 41 points. That's 1/3 of 1% at 12,556. NASDAQ also strong with a gain on the session of 18 points, 3/4 of 1%. 2502 is where the NASDAQ is finishing tonight. And the S&P 500 finishes like this. The 6-year high, as I mentioned, up 0.5%, 7 points higher at 1430. Crude oil futures actually ended higher on the day after a seesaw session. That helped energy stocks get a boost, and that was good for the S&P 500. The energy sector was the best gainer within the S&P 500 today. Crude oil is still below $53 a barrel, but today it was higher by 92 cents or 1.75%. Let's look at all the details on the action. Melissa Lee, our eye on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Melissa.
Hi there, Maria. The 24th record close for the Dow since the month of October. Not bad considering this is the Friday ahead of a 3-day weekend. In fact, for all the indices, a very nice week. It's the best week for the indices like the S&P, the NASDAQ, the Dow, as well as the Russell 2000. The best week in just about 2 months. Transports, a nice winner on the week as well, higher by about 3%. Small and mid-cap stocks higher by 2+% each, and the NASDAQ closing out the week with a 3% gain. Technology was a real source of the strength in today's session. This despite the disappointing news from AMD, and what a session it was for AMD. We actually saw about 199 million shares traded. The average daily volume on this stock is normally 17 million shares, so quite a downdraft for shares of AMD. But meantime, really contained to that stock. Intel trading higher ahead of its earnings report on Tuesday. Hewlett-Packard seen as a beneficiary of the price war between Intel and AMD. And IBM got its price target lifted over at Bank of America, also posting earnings next week. It will be a very big week for the tech stocks next week. Oil also behind the strength in today's session. We did see oil stocks strengthen as the session progressed. BP getting a nice intraday pop on news that its CEO, Lord John Brown, will be retiring by the end of July. Conoco ConocoPhillips another boost after it announced it will buy back up to $1 billion worth of stock. And as I mentioned, tech stocks, the area to watch next week, as well as the banks. Get a load of the list of banks reporting next week. Citigroup, the biggest of them all, out with earnings on Friday, followed by JP Morgan Wednesday, Wells Fargo Tuesday, and Merrill Lynch on Thursday. And of course, Maria, techs and financials, the two biggest parts of the markets.
Melissa, thanks so much. And as you just mentioned, Melissa, Advanced Micro Devices, one of the big board's most heavily traded stocks today. Take a look at that stock, down almost 10%, tumbling to its weakest levels in 6 months at $18.28 a share. The world's second largest chip maker under fire today after warning that profits dropped, quote, substantially in the fourth quarter. Revenue will also miss expectations, and margins, they are narrowing. The reason? Stiffer competition from Intel's new products and lower prices. AMD will report its fourth quarter earnings on January 23rd. Of course, now we know what to expect. AMD rival, meanwhile, Intel reports on Tuesday after the bell in a week full of results from Fortune 500 companies. For a closer look at what the earnings season may bring, let me bring in now Binky Chadha, Chief U.S. macro equity strategist with Deutsche Bank. Nice to have you with us.